In this example, I'm going to show a React checkbox list. So the code for this example can be found at the URL seen here in the HTML comment. And running, it looks like the following. I have a list of checkboxes. I've dressed up the checkboxes with a little image, and then the checkbox and a label that I think includes at least one span, maybe two. Okay. And then it's generated dynamically from data in a JSON file. And then as the user interacts with this file, there's a list at the bottom of the selected. So I can check new ones and uncheck ones. And looking at the console, that's the old fave icon problem, but I sort of have not too many problems here within the console. So, okay, again, one more time, as I select or deselect books, they are added to this list. And this list is sort of not in the order of the checking, but in some kind of order of how they are in the original array. So it's some sort of sub list and using the order from that array. So we will see the code that led to that. Okay, so I have some HTML, some CSS, some JavaScript, some JSON. Let's deal with the easy ones first. The style, there's not much in the way of style, some body color, span, given the span of widths, that give me some aligning, something about the images to make them that small little image next to the checkbox. And then this is some styling of the label next to a checked checkbox. So the checked checkboxes are styled differently from the others. So that was here to sort of the label next to the checked checkbox. I sort of reversed the coloring. So that was the CSS. Okay. Then let's look at the JSON file. My data of these books is in a JSON file. I'm starting with the curly bracket. So an object, that object has a property books. That books property, the value for that books property is a square bracket, so an array. And then the thing following the square bracket are in curly bracket, so it's an array of objects. So I have an object with a property, then there's an array of objects with properties like title, book, ISBN, and so on. Okay, so that's the JSON. The HTML, I had my comment showing you where you can find the code if you want it. Title, I'm linking to the style sheet. I'm linking to React 18. I'm linking to React.DOM.createRoot. I'm linking to Babel. So then I can make, within React, make my HTML and it's generating look a little bit more like HTML. Then within the body, I have an empty div. So everything is going to be generated dynamically by React and thrown into this div. And then I have a connection to the script, the art.js. And it's important that we note here that it is of the type text Babel. So it's not sort of pure, strictly JavaScript. Okay, so that was the HTML. Let's go over to the JS. I am creating a class, which is extending the React.Component class. And then this most of my code is defining that class. And then at the bottom, I create a root. So I'm connecting back to the HTML page, finding by the £sign an element with this ID of div book display. And then I'm using that root to render an object of this class, and we are creating and extending the React component. It has a state, so I'm just giving it an explicit constructor, so then I can add to the normal constructor of React Component my particular state for this. And I am, again, if you notice, I made my life difficult on purpose. I have like pre-selected 2 of the books just to be a little bit difficult and challenging. So some part of the state is I'm going to have an array of the pre-selected. So I chose here the 3 and 7. And then I have the array of books that are going to come from the JSON file. So that's going to be an array of objects. And then it takes some time to read the resource file, the JSON. And so I need to sort of do something before that happens and after that happens. And this Boolean is loading is for that purpose to say, I'm loading true, or then false, I am done loading, and so I'm no longer loading. Okay, the user can check checkboxes, so I need to handle that event. So I'm making a method I call handle change. It takes an event E. I'm using this fat arrow notation that helps me out in the following way, that when I use the word this, it belongs to the class, to the object, and not to the method, not to the function. Okay, and I want when the user checks the checkbox, this is the checking the change of the checkbox. When they do that, they are changing this list of selected indices. So I'm going to make a copy of that array. Then I'm going to change that array. Then I'm going to set the state with that copy of the array. So I can't sort of copy directly because of the sort of asynchronicity of the thing. It won't update. So I've got to copy the state, manipulate the copy of the state, then make the copy of the state. Okay. So now I may be with these checkboxes, I may be checking them, or I may be unchecking them, or selecting them and deselecting them. And so E is the event, the target is the element that brought me here, and it's a checkbox, so it has a status of checked or not checked. And so if it's checked, then I have just selected this book, and I have that array copy of the selected indices. I'm going to push that value. The value is going to be, I'm going to have the values of my checkboxes are going to be the indices of my array. So I'm adding that index to my array of selected indices, that's what copy is. Copy is a copy of the array of selected indices. I'm adding the value of the book that the user just checked and adding it to my list. And then I'm going to sort my list. So there's a built-in sort, and then there's sort of this age-old problem of that it will assume a string comparison if I just say sort. And so I give it my own compare function. And because I'm in my function, I am doing a subtraction, then it will be understood to treat it as A and B as numbers, and then it will give me a number sorting rather than a string sorting, and I'll get the order right. The else is if they are deselecting the book, if they are unchecking the book, and then therefore I want to take that value out of my array. So I'm filtering the copy. Copy is a copy of the selected indices. I'm going to filter out the element I'm taking out. So this is me taking out the element that is not. So I'm filtering out. Filter is sort of what I keep, and so this is what I don't keep is the one with the value that was just checked. And then I set this, and then now I'm reestablishing the state, and that selected indices, that array within the state is now set equal to the copy. Okay. I have a component did mount method, and this is where I am fetching the JSON file. I'm going to have two thens so I'm going to go out and get this art JSON resource when I have it. And then I come to the then portion. I am going to send out just the JSON. The JSON is an important enough format, certainly within JavaScript, but even greater than that, more general than that, that it's understood that that the JSON, that the content of that file is of the JSON format. And so start creating object and array and so on. And so then there may be other parts to the response, and I'm just pulling out the JSON part and and now data is this response.json. And I am establishing my state again, and I'm taking the books part of my, this books here is from the state up here is an array. And then the data, if you recall the format of the JSON was an object with a property books, and it was the array. And so that's why we have here data square bracket books. I could also do, I think, data dot books. So data dot books, I'm treating data as more of an object. And this notation here, I'm using more of an array notation, sort of a named index array, but I can use both. So it is possible in a JSON file for the name to have things like a space in it or something like that. And so the dot notation doesn't always work. I mean, here it's simply books. It would have worked either way. But every once in a while, I like to show both ways so that you know. And then I have my is loading Boolean from my state that I'm setting that to false, meaning that I'm done reading the file. Then finally render what I'm going to make in React. If I'm loading, all I'm going to do is have a paragraph that says loading, and that's that. Otherwise, I'm going to return. I put everything in one big React fragment here. I have a header. I have my state. I have my books array. I'm mapping, which is effectively just a loop over this array. The object, the element of my array, which happens to be an object, I'm calling book, and I is the index of counting. So just sort of some like for loop over books effectively. I want to know, I have to treat it slightly differently if my book is selected or not selected. So if here is my state has a selected indices. I'm looking within my selected indices for this I. If it's -1, that means I did not find it. It is not a selected book. And so I'm returning a div. When you return multiple things, when your React has multiple things, it likes to have this property key and give them distinct keys. Sort of it's a behind the scenes thing, but you will get warnings. It sort of works, but you'll get warnings if you don't have it. So I have this div with some key. I have the image with some key, and the source is the book.book cover. Again, book is like the dummy name within the iteration of the object, and then it has the book_cover property, and I made that the source of the image. Here's my input of the checkbox type. I gave it a key. I gave it an ID because I'm going to have a label and I want them to work as a team. So I'm giving my checkbox an ID. I'm making it of the type checkbox. I'm giving it a name. I don't think I need to in this case, but I'm doing it. Giving it the value of the index I, and on change, I'm referring to the handle change that we previously described. Here's my label. I gave it a key. I gave it an HTML4 that matches the ID up here. I can't use simply the word for like I would in HTML because for is a JavaScript word as well as an HTML word, so I need to make the distinction. Then within the label, I have a span. Again, give it a key. Between the open span and the closed span, I'm giving the book title. And then after the span, I'm giving the book's ISBN. And the span had a width, and my style was inline block, its display, and was given a width. So that gave me my sort of alignment that I had. So then all the ISBNs more or less lined up. Close the label, close the div. And then again, my if here was whether it was one of the selected books or not. So the else is one of the selected books, and almost everything's the same, except here I've added in this property default checked. If I have checked instead of default checked, then if you're just looking at the interface, you're not looking at the console, it seems like all is fine if you just were to here say checked. But if you deselect something, you get an error message in React. It works, it looks fine, but behind the scenes, you're getting an error message about something controlled, uncontrolled. And I found that if I use default checked, then that fixed that problem. So now I can check new things and uncheck things that were previously checked and not get any warnings or error messages in my console. Okay, so that was the only difference in the else of my if. Finish off my maps, and then that was my whole array. We'll run it one more time so you can see. That was all my checkboxes. Now I have to tell you about this section down here, the selected book section. So that is here. I did 2 breaks. I did the selected books. Now I am mapping over the selected indices. So I have this is the object of the class. It has a state. It has a set of selected indices. I'm mapping, I'm looping over it. It's an array of indices, so I've called the element index to remind myself that it's an index, but I also have a counter I. I have more than one, and it wants this key, so I gave it a key using I. Could have also used index, though they're also unique. Doesn't matter, it's just a behind the scenes needs to be unique kind of a thing. But now I want to show you information about the selected books. So it's this .state.books square bracket index dot book underscore title. Okay, and then parentheses, I was showing the author. So I was showing down here of the selected books, I was showing the title and the author. And there I am at the end of the return, the end of the else, the end of the render, the end of the class. So that's what I wanted to show you. Checkboxes, I'm making a whole from scratch in React checkbox list. Because there were multiples, I had to work with this key. because I was checking and unchecking things. I needed this. Now I lost it. It's in the second one. The default checked. And those are the main features that were maybe a little tricky to figure out. There's also this sorting of the array up here and making sure that was here, sorting the array and making sure it was sorted by indices, by number. All right, that's what I want to show you. Thanks for your attention.